And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west, across the surface of the whole earth, without touching the ground. So Daniel was looking almost, well, was seeing as what we see in cartoons pretty much, that they're going so fast that the feet don't really touch the ground. So Daniel was seeing something like that pretty much. Not a cartoon, but I mean, in the sense that we see it, the representation of going so fast that the feet don't even touch the ground. So that is to show how the kingdom that would come afterwards would be so fast in conquering. And like we seen in, well, we saw in the previous chapter, the leopard represented the Greek Empire. And so we know the leopard is very fast, and not only was a leopard, it also had wings. So pretty much the same symbolism is being used here through a different animal. So and as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west. Like I mentioned the other time, I think it was last week. It is believed by some, and I believe that it's very possible. That's why I mentioned it. That just like it happened with the in the days of Noah, when the Malachim came down and had relations with women, and they gave birth to the Nephilim, the fallen ones, and they were giants. One of the reasons why they were giants, one of the reasons was how the environment was before the flood. After the flood, the environment in the world changed, so the age of man started to go down. Animals started to um, be smaller, and a bunch of other things like fruits, vegetables, and everything else. So there is, like, after, well, also it is written that there were giants in those times and also afterwards. That's why when the Israelites went to conquer the promised land, there were giants over there, and they were huge still. Not as big as the times of Noah, but they were huge, as we see in the account in scriptures. But they started, I mean, they kept uh, growing smaller pretty much. So then we see Goliath, which was a giant, but which was a lot smaller than the giants that were kicked out of the land, who were a lot smaller than the giants that died in the flood. So the Nephilim, because of the environment, and because also I'm sure they have made some changes in the way they um, change or mess around with the DNA of man to mix it with theirs to make a hybrid so that it can appear as a human. So that is pretty much like strategy. A giant would be obvious. It would be obviously different than a regular human being, even though they would pretty much look the same, yet one would be a lot bigger. Just that would show that it's different. So, as strategy to get into the world, control the world, they had to be like the humans, so they made Nephilim that look like us in most sense. When it comes to Alexander the Great, some say that he had eyes like a goat, like a male goat. So it is very interesting that in prophecy we see that Yahweh compares Alexander the Great to a male goat that had wings, like a malach. That's why he conquered everything so fast. So that's why some believe that Alexander the Great was a Nephilim who had eyes like a goat. And I repeat, one of the reasons that the Nephilim wouldn't be as big as they used to would be because of the environment, even though there are some stories of our time of giants still smaller than those, but giants in certain parts of the world. Um, and the other reason would be strategy, like the wheat and the tares, that they look the same, but until the end of times, Yahweh will show who is who. And also, see in Daniel that we saw in Daniel 2 that the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw that represented all the kingdoms, the last kingdom was a mix of iron and clay, and that represents malachim, angels, mixing with humans, which are made of clay. That's why it said, and they will mingle with the seed of men. They, the malachim, will mingle with the seed of men. If they will mingle with the seed of men, is because they are not men, so they are malachim, angels. Nowadays, they say they are extraterrestrials, and that's how they will, like when somebody may be a hybrid, if they figure it out somehow, like some of them obviously do it for the fame or to be on TV and stuff like that, but it is possible that some of those seeds of tares that they have planted in the world have grown as regular people, and they come to find out because of memories that they receive all of a sudden, or because of experiences that they have with UFOs or stuff like that, that they are half and half. So I believe there are some who may realize it, as there are so many people that talk about that. Just in case you guys haven't seen it or search for that type of information, there are a lot of people that claim to be a mix with extraterrestrials, and I repeat, they are not extraterrestrials. That's how they appear to those people. That's how they present to people in the world, because back in the day they presented themselves as gods, but now because of the science of men, they have changed their strategy once again. It's all about strategy. So I will continue reading. Just in case, you can write all your questions on the chat, and as soon as I finish the chapter, I'll go and read all the questions. So as I was reading, and as I was considering, suddenly a male goat, Alexander the Great, came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his two horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. So this shows how Alexander the Great would come and destroy the Persians and the Medes and take over the world as a male goat, which I repeat, some say he was a descendant of a entity that is like a goat. Now, like I was saying, if we see the ram as, well, Mashiach, in the sense that the ram that was sacrificed instead of Yitzhak, like I explained, and the two horns as the two witnesses, or, well, the ram could represent many things, but the two horns as the two witnesses, then this male goat would be Azazel. Like I said, in Leviticus, in Yom Kippur, there was one male goat for Yahweh, that was Yahushua, and one male goat for Azazel, or Azazel, as some call it. So, Azazel is the third Satan. As I always mention, there are three Satans, and a fourth spirit of evil, which is the evil wisdom, the one that is worshipped as a female, as the queen of heaven, as we see in the book of Jeremiah. So one female, three males, as they appear. One spirit, three malachim. That spirit is the evil wisdom. Then the first Satan, or Satan, is called Samael. The second, Halel, known as Lucifer. And the third, Azazel. Azazel is trapped in Abaddon, the worst part of the Sheol, of where the souls go, and where some angels were trapped since the time of Enoch because of their rebellion, when they fell, Azazel, Shemchaza, with 198 more malachim to mix with the women and have children. So Azazel is the third Satan. First fell Samael, then Halel, and then Azazel. So each one of those represents one aspect of evil that we need to destroy in our reality, in our lives, through Yahweh, using the strength that Yahushua gives us. That's why there were three veils: the one on the face of Moshe, the one at the entrance of the temple, and the one at the entrance of the most set apart place. I am saying all of that because Azazel is Abaddon, is trapped, and is going to be allowed to get out on the fifth trumpet of Revelation 9. On the fifth trumpet, Abaddon will come out. That spirit will influence and give power to the beast, who is a mix, as we see in Revelation 13, of all the beasts, and who will kill the two witnesses. So we can see here that he's talking about the Persian Empire and the Greeks, but in a deeper sense and more prophetical way, is prophesying about the two witnesses who will be killed by the beast, who will receive power to do so from Abaddon, Azazel. That's why the male goat, it says, and I was considering suddenly a male goat, Abaddon, Azazel, Revelation 9, the fifth trumpet. A male goat came from the west. So the beast most likely will come from the west, and most likely north, and pretty much the west of Israel. So not just, it doesn't have to be for sure the United States, just in case that was the idea that came to your heads. Just the west of Israel. There's a lot of land. And north, because evil comes from the north, as also Yahweh says. So then it says, suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth. So that kind of shows that, yeah, it's all the way to the extreme. So in a way it could be, like I mentioned previously, without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. That shows how the male goat, Abaddon, will use the horn, the little horn, the beast, to kill the two witnesses. Then he came to the ram that had two horns. He came to pretty much the two witnesses, which I had seen standing beside the river, who is Yahushua, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against them, just like the beast will hate the two witnesses, will hate Mashiach, speak great things against them. Attacked the ram and broke his two horns. That's when they both died, the two witnesses, who have one anointing. That's why one ram, two horns, as Zechariah 4 mentions the two olive trees. Then it says, there was no power in the ram to withstand him. Just like when Yahushua had to die, Yahweh went away from him for a second. That's why Yahushua said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. So Yahweh will have to do the same with the two witnesses in order for them to die. That's why during their ministry, the 3.5 years, people will try to kill them, but Yahweh will protect them. 3.5 years, they will be protected. Nobody will be able to kill them. But then in one moment, Yahweh takes away that protection, and then the beast takes advantage of that instant and kills them. So there was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand.